It's Podraza. I'm not making any of this up. Hi, it's Pat again. All's well. I know you're involved with your husband. This is bothering me. Woke up. How did you inherit Dr. Casey's cases? Did you tell me the truth in the beginning on that? I wanted nothing to do with that male and how my psychology demised and that Claire choice and none of that hell that I lived on that subject, nor would my mother have wanted that. Ruth May was not a seance type of thing. She was not evil. She was good. Now, I'm serious on my mother's side of the family. I'm serious that she chose here. And I'm going to tell you, you have to clarify that with me again. I wanted nothing to do with that male and what took place in Glastonbury on that subject, etc. I do not want a thing to do with Patrick Flaherty. All of the above bothered my mother. She was good and savvy, and boy, my father was good and savvy and not stupid. I've told you the truth. You got to tell me how you inherited his cases, because I'm not involved with some element of Massachusetts on that mess either. Because E. Manning, they had messed up as away from a male. I was no way away from a male. That was Emmanuel Green and that sort of stuff. I want nothing to do with the world of psychics in Massachusetts under any circumstances at all. Any witches, warlocks, any of that, seances, no way. I am not any part of that and will not have part of that. And I felt Dr. Casey ruined me with somebody, and it was a female, who was behind the scenes on that also. And I don't want a thing to do with Claire. That ruined me. And man, I don't want to hear about it. Barbara Judd Murphy, etc. I really do not want to hear about that element. Now, my son, single family attached dwelling, heard conversations regarding money and my mother on the trying to retain that single family attached dwelling. He felt his toys were worth something. He kept them all good and neat. And I said to him, well, you love them, but I have a... My son and I have discussed this, and he kept that on eBay. He sold them, bought them, has worked with some good kids that he deals with as honorably as he can. That has supplemented his income for that house and bringing in money, and he loves children. He used Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker was the good one. He had a lightsaber. I bought him, and they could stay up late and watch peanut shows at that point. They used 2 sleepers, one larger, one shorter, so there'd be no smothering with a blanket either. I worried about that. I loved those children. That was on Deer Run Trail where we lost that house. And I'm going to tell you, I won't have a thing to do with a psychic under any circumstances at all, other than that mind that chose that, and I chose him also. Now, I'm going to tell you, you got to tell me that all over again. So, he kept that in his heart, that would bring him extra money to save that single-family attached dwelling. I told him it has transferred that to his own home that he's tried to keep, build, and have as his equity. And that is not childishness. It is none of that. And I'm going to tell you, I apologize to that boy more than once on that subject. There is nothing immature in him. And he helped my mother when she fell at the pie shop and ended up in traction. in a hospital while I went back and forth on a bus in a dark place in Boston to visit them when I could. Boston drove me a few times. Also, Melanie didn't understand that situation that became an issue. But we were doing well in Boston. I don't want any connection with anything that went on in Boston regarding the sexuality stuff that I dealt with. I don't know who was involved in that crazy behavior, with a pin in the bottom of my right foot that got infected on some beach. Some warlock or something was involved in that. I will not have any, I've told you that correctly. He still does that, or at his house. I've heard a lot of insults on that son. He was never immature. They had to go to school. They were working at night, I think at that point in time, in the day also. And that boy took care of that mail and all of that stuff for my mother. Well, I went back and forth trying to get employed and doing what I had to do because phones were slammed down. Nobody was available to speak to. I couldn't pay my bills, and I couldn't get anything done due to an element of female, especially in Connecticut, and some males. Now, they were heavy hitters in terms of wealth. I don't want to hear anything on that. You will have to clarify to me on that subject. I am not for Patrick Flaherty. I'm not for what Coney did to my mother. His father was a Catholic school she went to. I can't think of the name. I thought it was St. Peter's. And that is it. Now, I'm going to tell you flat out, if it's connected to an element of Catholicism, I don't want to deal with, which is Nazism. We had a problem, and my mother didn't like even something connected with her mother on Spring Street. She had my gut levels by then, and we were in sync. Now, that has to be clarified, because they were all messed up in Massachusetts. You're sawed off. As if I were dead wood. You are Auschwitz. You are gassed, is what I listen to. Now, that is Nazi vernacular. I must not be near that. And I got to verify that you're not hooked in to what would have demolished me. Now, that has to do with prior, also, marriage. And I never had an affair. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what went on, but that is what I was told. Now, the issue is, I believe in that mind. He hasn't got long to live. And I would never usurp whoever he is. I would never do him dirty. And that is where it is. I am loyal. And that goes deep. I've had to go by loyalty in this. And my family's gut levels, it ran on the side of Jack also. Now, Jack was my aunt's son. Now, that is it, President. I was angry about that because it was known by Fred Larson that I had some gut levels. So that is where we're at. I was very angry backwards in time on this. That mind told me, and it was a help, that some of them went on drugs. Now, that would have destroyed me if it were not for he. Because I was doing so much analysis, I almost knocked myself out analyzing on this subject matter. And I'm telling you, this was not, might have been games, but it was no way fun for me. And it wasn't fun for my mother. It hurt her deeply. And I do want my son to have the respect with me here and extend it must extend with that male. Remember, I want Stephen Cutler, if he'll have me, and I want no more betrayal. on that subject matter. That matters to me. I chose that. We went through all on this, and we all both went, that mind and myself, through the ground on this. Now, I don't want to hear too many individuals tampering with me. I have no problem respecting a female's intellect. I had trouble with males, I told Irving Frank. No, I don't want to go to his wife. Now, she might have been a therapist. I'm having trouble with males, meaning of wealth shanghaiing me. And I didn't want to hear about it. I'm meant to be here. And my son is not wrong about that process of this apartment and what he tried to do for me also. Now, I want to deal with him. I love that boy. He's the breath I live. And that judge in Bridgeton was not a bad judge. He handled that well. I didn't know whether my son was dead or alive at that point. This is not game time. You're so drugged out or something that they don't know what they're doing. I gotta worry about it. I don't have a problem. I've dealt with those who have drank a bit, and they were always on my side in terms of emotions.